Hajime was betrayed and thrown into the deepest, most dangerous part of the Orcus dungeon, a place filled with terrifying monsters. This is the story of how betrayal created one of the strongest heroes in history. The story begins with Hajime waking up alone inside the dungeon. Confused but still alive, he quickly realizes he has to escape before the monsters find him. Suddenly, he notices what looks like a harmless rabbit. Moments later, a pack of wolf-like monsters attacks it, only to be torn apart instantly. Hajime realizes the rabbit is actually a terrifying monster. Before he can react, it suddenly charges toward him. Just then, an even larger monster appears. The rabbit immediately flees, but the giant monster catches it and crushes its head before eating it alive. Terrified, Hajime tries to escape, but the giant monster slices off his arm and even eats it in front of him. With no strength left and bleeding heavily, he is moments away from death. At the last second, Hajime uses his skill to dig a tunnel through the rocks and barely escapes. The monster chases him but cannot enter the narrow passage. Looking at his wound, Hajime realizes he will die from blood loss even if the monsters leave him alone. Then he notices a legendary crystal that produces the Water of God, a liquid capable of healing injuries and removing curses. Seeing it reminds him of the day he entered the Orcus dungeon. Back then, he traveled with a powerful party, but was by far the weakest member. After nearly dying to his first monster, Amanagawa saved him. Later, they discovered a mysterious glance crystal. Although Milady warned everyone not to touch it, Daisuke ignored her warning. The moment he touched it, a massive magic circle teleported the entire party to the 65th floor. An army of skeletons immediately attacked them. Although they defeated most of them, the gigantic monster leading the army was impossible to stop. Milady created a magic barrier, but it was shattered instantly. Hajime then used his skill to restrain the monster with rocks and told everyone to escape. However, the monster broke free. As the party launched a massive magical attack, one spell suddenly struck Hajime, sending him straight toward the monster. The ground collapsed beneath them, causing Hajime to fall into the abyss. While falling, he realized the attack was no accident. Someone from his own party had deliberately betrayed him. As he slowly bled to death, Hajime remembered a conversation from 9 days earlier. Before entering the dungeon, Shirasaki begged him not to go, warning him how dangerous it was. Hajime reassured her that their party was strong enough to protect everyone. She promised that if anything happened, she would protect him herself. Back in the present, Hajime lay surrounded by his own blood. Why me? Why did everyone abandon me? Why didn't anyone try to save me? Consumed by despair, he swore that anyone who stood in his way from now on would die. Soon, unbearable hunger forced him to lure a monster into a trap and kill it. Desperate to survive, he ate its flesh. Instantly, unbearable pain spread through his body as the monster's genes fused with his own. His hair turned white, his body became far stronger, and after checking his status screen, he discovered that his stats had increased dramatically. He had also gained a new skill called Lightning Field. He even used lightning to cook the monster meat before eating it. Realizing he needed better weapons, Hajime gathered gunpowder and Toru stones. Using transmutation, he forged a deadly handgun powerful enough to kill monsters. He tested it on another rabbit monster, killing it with a single shot before eating it as well. Checking his status screen again, Hajime discovered another terrifying truth. Every monster he devoured made him stronger and granted him that monster's skill. With his new power, Hajime went looking for the giant monster that had torn off his arm. "So, did my arm taste good?" he asked. "Now I'll kill you and eat you the same way you ate mine." The monster charged, but Hajime easily dodged its attacks. His bullets couldn't pierce its body, so he blinded it with a flash grenade before shooting off one of its arms. Then, right in front of the monster, Hajime picked up the severed arm and started eating it. Enraged, the monster attacked one last time. Hajime activated Lightning Field, paralyzing it before firing a bullet straight through its head. With the monster finally dead, Hajime looked ahead and declared, "Now, I'll escape this dungeon, and everyone who betrayed me will pay." After defeating the giant monster, Hajime eats its flesh and makes new clothes from its hide. He continues exploring the dungeon until a strange monster suddenly destroys his lamp and wounds him. After healing himself with the Water of God, Hajime blinds the creature with a flash grenade before killing it with a single shot. As time passes, he reaches the 29th floor, eliminating every monster that stands in his way. Meanwhile, back in the Hylian Kingdom, Captain Meld reports everything to the king. He explains how the glance crystal sent them to the 65th floor, where Hajime was supposedly killed. The king questions whether only the monsters were responsible for Hajime's death, before ordering everyone to keep it a secret. After the meeting, Shizuku begins suspecting that something about Hajime's fall was not an accident. She later remembers how the king explained that humans, demons, and demi-humans lived in this world, and that Hajime and his classmates were ordinary students summoned from another world to help humanity. During her training, Daisuke accidentally mutters that no one saw what he did. When Shizuku questions him, he quickly brushes it off, but she remembers that he had bullied Hajime even before they were summoned, making her suspicion grow even stronger. Soon afterward, Shirasaki finally wakes up. The moment she regains consciousness, she asks about Hajime. When Shizuku tells her that he fell into the dungeon and died, Shirasaki refuses to believe it and insists that Hajime is still alive. Meanwhile, Hajime reaches the 50th floor after spending a long time searching for an exit. There, he discovers a massive gate with 3 empty slots. Trying to force it open with lightning field only activates the gate's guardians. Hajime defeats the first monster easily, but the second one proves far tougher. After realizing it never leaves the gate, he tricks it into exposing its blind spot before shooting it through the head. Meanwhile, Shirasaki tells Shizuku that she will grow stronger and someday enter the dungeon to rescue Hajime. Shizuku promises that when the time comes, they will save him together. Back at the gate, Hajime finds 3 special stones inside the defeated monsters. After placing them into the empty slots, the gate finally opens. He steps into a mysterious space where a gigantic floating stone spins endlessly in the center. Then a voice suddenly asks, "Who are you?" And the giant stone begins to move. As the gate opens, they find a girl chained from head to toe inside. Hajime stares at her in confusion and says, "Who is she? And who did this to her?" However, he suddenly apologizes for disturbing her and prepares to leave. The girl quickly calls out, "Wait, please save me." Hajime stops and asks, "Save you? How? And who are you anyway? Are you human or a monster?" She begs him once again and explains that she was betrayed, which is why she was imprisoned in this place. The moment Hajime hears the word betrayed, he remembers everything that happened to him. He walks back toward her and asks her to tell him her story. She explains that she is a vampire. She was once a queen, but the kingdom's leaders decided to get rid of her. Her uncle seized the throne and became king. Even though she had done nothing wrong and never left the kingdom, they feared her power and sealed her away inside this place. Hajime starts breaking the seal and assures her that he will save her. A few moments later, he successfully destroys the seal and sets her free. The girl thanks him and introduces herself as Yaoi. Suddenly, an attack comes flying toward them. Hajime immediately shields Yaoi with his own body and takes the hit instead. Afterward, he pours the water of God over his wound before wondering where the attack came from. A moment later, he notices a group of monsters above them. He tells Yaoi that those monsters are trying to stop her from leaving. He gives her his cloak, carries her on his back, and decides to escape with her. However, a giant monster lands right in front of the exit, blocking their path. Hajime challenges it, declaring that it will end up just like every monster that came before it. He opens fire with his handgun, but the monster's body is so tough that the bullets have no effect. The monster charges toward him. Hajime leaps into the air, fires several more shots, and throws a grenade that explodes against its body. Even so, the monster survives and begins destroying everything around it. Hajime is shocked by how durable it is and wonders how he is supposed to defeat it. Suddenly, Yaoi bites Hajime's neck and drinks a small amount of his blood. He is completely caught off guard, but he soon realizes that she was trying to activate her powers. The moment she succeeds, the ground around them changes. Both of them fall to a lower level, and Hajime notices that her ability is very similar to his own skill. Unable to follow them, the monster begins smashing the rocks Yaoi created. Yaoi tells Hajime to leave the monster to her before unleashing an enormous blue flame. The attack slams into the monster's head and sends it crashing to the ground, but it still survives. Since she has not fully recovered her strength, Yaoi becomes exhausted and can no longer stand. Hajime asks her to use the attack one more time. She warns him that it will be much weaker this time. He tells her that it does not matter and asks her to wait for his signal. Then Hajime rushes toward the monster himself to keep it distracted. When the time is right, he gives Yaoi the signal. She unleashes her attack once again, knocking the monster to the ground. Hajime immediately seizes the opportunity, jumps onto its head, and fires 2 bullets that finally end its life. Afterward, he begins cutting up the monster's meat. He then asks Yaoi if vampires have been extinct for the past 300 years. When she confirms it, Hajime realizes that she must be over 300 years old and blurts it out without thinking. Yue gives him a look that makes it seem like she wants to drink his blood. Hajime quickly changes the subject and asks if she knows the way out of the dungeon. She simply replies that she does not. After that, Hajime combines special stones with the monster's hard ice to forge a powerful rifle. Yue watches in amazement and asks how he can eat monster meat and create weapons in a place like this. For the first time, Hajime opens up to someone and tells her everything that has happened since he fell into the dungeon. Afterward, the two of them continue searching for an exit together. Yue feels deeply saddened. After hearing everything Hajime has been through, he tells her not to worry about it. All he wants now is to escape from this place. He also says that he has no desire to take revenge on his former friends. However, if they stand in his way, he will not hesitate to eliminate them. Then he tells Yue that when he returns to his own world, he will take her with him. Hearing that makes Yue genuinely happy, and she hopes that day will come. Elsewhere, the heroes continue their training, still not knowing whether their friend is alive or dead. Captain Meld tells them that Amanogawa's strength has increased dramatically and encourages everyone to continue training hard. Meanwhile, Hajime carries Yue on his back while fleeing from a massive group of monsters that relentlessly chase them. Then he notices strange flowers growing on top of the monsters' heads. Yue explains that someone is controlling those monsters. Hajime immediately jumps into a pit and successfully throws the monsters off his trail. For the second time, Yue drinks a small amount of Hajime's blood. After that, Hajime begins searching for the creature controlling the monsters. Soon, he discovers a cave packed with monsters from every direction. He concludes that whoever is controlling them must be inside. Without hesitation, he rushes into the cave while the monsters fail to catch up. He then seals the cave entrance from the inside, draws his handgun, and prepares to face his enemy. Suddenly, strange parasites appear all around them. Hajime quickly creates a rock barrier to protect himself, but a flower suddenly blooms on Yue's head. She instantly destroys the barrier and attacks Hajime. He immediately realizes that she has fallen under the enemy's control. He points his handgun at her, but he cannot bring himself to pull the trigger. Yue continues attacking while Hajime does nothing except dodge her strikes. Then the monster controlling her finally reveals itself. Hajime immediately aims his handgun at it. However, the monster stands directly behind Yue, almost daring Hajime to shoot if he has the courage. Hajime hesitates. At that exact moment, Yue lands a powerful blow that knocks him to the ground. A flower then appears on Hajime's head as well, making the monster believe it now controls both of them. But suddenly Hajime bursts into laughter, and the flower on his head instantly dies. He tells the monster that such a weak power could never control him. In the very next moment, Yue attacks him again. Despite being controlled, she tells Hajime not to worry about her, and to attack with everything he has. She tells him to fire even if the bullet passes right beside her. Hajime agrees. He fires a shot that passes directly over Yue's head, destroying the controlling flower before continuing forward and blowing off the monster's arm. Before the monster can even turn around, it finds Hajime with the muzzle of his handgun pressed against its head. A single shot is all it takes to blow its head off. After the battle, Yue looks at Hajime and tells him that he almost blew her head off when she told him to shoot. Hajime jokingly replies that he did not have any other choice, and if she had died, she could have complained afterward. They sit down together while Hajime roasts the monster's meat. Then he looks at Yue and asks, "Aren't you going to eat?" Yue suddenly jumps on Hajime and drinks his blood again. Seriously, she's starting to treat him like a walking juice box. After that, they continue deeper into the dungeon until they reach a gigantic gate. It opens on its own, revealing what looks like a royal palace. A magic circle appears, and Hajime immediately realizes they've entered the dungeon master's chamber. Moments later, the dungeon master reveals itself, a massive six-headed serpent. The battle begins instantly. Hajime and Yue overwhelm the monster at first, but they soon discover that one white head can heal every injury the others receive. Realizing that the white serpent is the real target, they focus all of their attacks on it. However, another head intercepts every attack, allowing the white serpent to heal the damage repeatedly. Suddenly, one of the heads traps Yue inside a painful illusion, leaving her defenseless. Before the monster can kill her, Hajime saves her with a barrage of bullets and a grenade before reviving her with the water of God. The fight continues, while Yue keeps the monster busy with lightning magic. Hajime switches to his newly crafted rifle. The illusion serpent tries trapping Yue again, but this time she avoids looking into its eyes and blasts it away with lightning. Moments later, Hajime is dragged into an illusion of his own, forcing him to relive every betrayal he suffered. Instead of breaking him, it only fuels his rage. He unloads his rifle, destroying 3 heads with a single shot, while Yaoi finishes off the remaining ones with another lightning attack. But the battle isn't over. The white serpent is still alive. Recognizing Yaoi as the greatest threat, it charges straight toward her. Hajime throws himself in front of her, taking the attack instead. The impact leaves him unconscious and covered in blood. Desperate, Yaoi protects him with a magic barrier while escaping the relentless attacks. After reviving him with the water of God, she realizes he still can't fight. With no other choice, Yaoi picks up Hajime's handgun and faces the monster alone. She lands a perfect shot on its eye, but the serpent counterattacks and sends her flying. Unable to move, Yaoi breaks down in tears as the monster prepares to finish her. At the very last second, Hajime wakes up and saves her. He tells her not to cry because they're leaving this dungeon together. Then he asks Yaoi to drink his blood once more so she can recover her full strength. While Yaoi prepares her next spell, Hajime charges straight at the serpent. As he dodges every attack, he secretly fills the surrounding walls with explosives. Finally, he fires a single bullet. Every explosive detonates at once, and the entire ceiling collapses onto the serpent, burying it beneath the rubble. The monster is still alive, but the collapsed ceiling traps it beneath the rubble. Hajime immediately uses transmutation, crushing its body with the surrounding rocks, while Yaoi finishes it off with one final devastating spell. The monster is finally destroyed, and the dungeon begins collapsing around them. Exhausted, Hajime sits down, relieved that he somehow survived. Meanwhile, back in the kingdom, Aiko demands that the king send the summoned students home, refusing to let them keep dying in battle. The king promises he will not force them to fight, but insists she continue helping the kingdom with agriculture, unwilling to lose someone as valuable as her. Elsewhere, the heroes return to the Orcus dungeon. While Shirasaki still believes Hajime might be alive, Amanogawa insists they must move forward, and the party resumes exploring. Back in the dungeon, Hajime wakes up inside a mysterious room beside Yaoi. She explains that after defeating the serpent, the gate opened. She carried him inside and healed him with the water of God. Hajime then notices pain in his neck. Yaoi casually admits she got hungry, so she drank his blood again. At this point, Hajime is convinced she thinks he's a walking juice box. The two begin exploring their surroundings and discover a fully furnished mansion, complete with bedrooms, a workshop, an office, and even a swimming pool. Hajime jokes that it feels more like a luxury hotel than a dungeon. Eventually they reach the top floor, where they discover a skeleton sitting on a chair inside a giant magic circle. When Hajime steps into it, the skeleton suddenly comes to life. It introduces itself as Oscar, the creator of the dungeon. Oscar explains that this is only a recorded message left behind for whoever conquers the dungeon. Since Hajime reached this place, he has proven himself worthy of inheriting Oscar's ancient power. Meanwhile, the heroes finally reach the 65th floor, where Hajime once fell. The same behemoth appears again. This time, however, the party fights together. Amanogawa leads the battle. Meld and Shizuku destroy the monster's horn, while Shirasaki keeps everyone alive with her healing magic. After a fierce battle, Amanogawa lands the finishing blow. Believing they've finally avenged Hajime, the heroes celebrate their victory. Back inside the mansion, Oscar's message ends. Immediately afterward, unbearable pain surges through Hajime as he inherits Oscar's power. Once the pain subsides, Yaoi asks what they will do after leaving this place. Hajime answers without hesitation. He's going back to his own world. Yaoi smiles and tells him she's coming with him. Hajime then reveals that he has obtained a new ancient ability capable of freely reshaping matter, and promises to teach Yaoi how to use it as well. After escaping the dungeon, Hajime and Yaoi decide to stay in Oscar's mansion for 2 months. They bury Oscar, unlock his workshop with his ring, and spend their time mastering ancient magic, while Hajime creates even stronger weapons and a prosthetic arm. Once they're ready, they activate the magic circle and finally return to the surface. Shortly after arriving, they save a rabbit demi-human girl from a monster. She introduces herself as Shay and begs Hajime to save her tribe from extinction. At first, Hajime refuses, but Shay reveals that she can see the future and guide them through the fog surrounding the Great Tree Lake, the place Hajime plans to visit. After Yaoi convinces him, Hajime agrees to help. When they reach the Howlia tribe, they find it under attack by dragons. Hajime casually uses Shay as bait, shoots every dragon out of the sky, then catches her before she hits the ground. Shay explains that she was condemned by the other rabbit tribes because of her ability to see the future. Only the Howlia tribe protected her, forcing them all to live as fugitives. Hajime stays with the tribe for a while, wiping out every enemy that attacks them and finally allowing them to live in peace. Although Shay thanks him, Hajime reminds her that they simply made a deal. He would protect the tribe and she would guide him to the Great Tree Lake. The next morning, the Howlia ask Hajime to train them before he leaves. He accepts, but quickly realizes how gentle they are when they hold a funeral for the very first animal they kill. Completely losing his patience, Hajime shouts at them, "If you don't want to die at the hands of monsters or your enemies, then unleash your strength. Kill or be killed. There is no other choice. You have to unleash your true strength. Either you kill or you get killed. There is no other choice." From that day on, Hajime trained them mercilessly until they became true warriors, leaving large parts of the forest in ruins during their training. Meanwhile, Shay picks up an entire tree and swings it at Yue. Yue blocks it with her fire magic and blasts Shay away, but Shay quickly charges back for another attack. She screams as she rushes in again, but Yue easily dodges the strike before defeating her with Ice Crystal. And that was only training. Imagine what they would be like in a real battle. A little later, Hajime walks over and asks if they're finally done. Shay insists that she was about to win, but Yue turned the tables at the last second. Hajime then asks Yue how much Shay has improved. She tells him that Shay's strength has increased tremendously over the past few weeks. Smiling, Hajime says that the training has finally paid off. Just then, Shay's father arrives and tells Hajime that the tribe hunted the monsters exactly as instructed. Hajime looks at the pile of monsters and says it still isn't enough. They're stronger now, but they still have a long way to go. The tribe members explain that those monsters attacked them first, so killing them was the only option. They even admit that they've started feeling something strange whenever they hear monsters screaming as they're being killed. They've changed completely after Hajime's training. These are the same people who used to hold funerals for every animal that died. After that, everyone heads toward the Great Tree. Shay's father explains that the tree had already been dead long before the village was built, and that its roots hadn't grown in many years. Suddenly, Hajime notices Oscar's emblem carved into one of the rocks. He immediately realizes that this place is the entrance to another dungeon. He places Oscar's ring onto the emblem, and a message appears before him. It says that only those who possess 4 symbols are allowed to enter. Yue concludes that this means they must first conquer 4 different dungeons. At that moment, Hajime realizes there is no choice but to challenge the second dungeon. He says goodbye to the tribe and tells them that he has fulfilled his promise. Now it's time for him to continue his journey. Shay's father offers to travel with him. However, Hajime refuses and tells them to stay behind and keep training until he returns to find them even stronger. That night, Hajime prepares to leave. Meanwhile, Shay remembers her childhood, when she tearfully asked her mother why everyone wanted to kill her. Her mother comforted her and told her not to be afraid, because the tribe's chief would never let anyone hurt her. Returning to the present, Shay realizes that without Hajime, the entire tribe would have been wiped out. She asks Yue to convince Hajime to let her travel with them. Yue actually tries to persuade him, while Shay promises that her future sight will be useful throughout the journey. Eventually, Hajime gives in after getting tired of her endless begging. The 3 of them continue their journey until they arrive at the ruins of Raisen. Hajime studies his map, searching for the dungeon entrance. Suddenly, Shay calls out to them and tells them to hurry. They enter the ruins and find a stone tablet waiting for them. Then they hear a mysterious voice. It welcomes them to Milady's dungeon. Hajime looks around in confusion, wondering who the owner of the voice is. At that moment, Shay starts punching the wall, trying to find a hidden entrance. Hajime immediately tells her to stop messing with things. But suddenly, a secret passage opens behind the wall. Shay rushes inside first. The entrance immediately begins closing behind her. Fortunately, Hajime and Yue manage to slip inside before it completely seals shut. The moment they enter, an attack comes flying toward them. Hajime instantly draws his handgun and blocks it. He then looks around for Shay, only to find her clinging to the ceiling. At that moment, the mysterious voice speaks again. Annoyed, Shay smashes the magical tablet with her weapon. The voice simply calls her an idiot, explaining that the tablet automatically repairs itself. Afterward, the 3 continue walking through the narrow passage. Suddenly, Hajime steps on the floor, producing a strange sound. In the very next moment, every door around them slams shut, and a gigantic boulder starts rolling toward them. Yue tries to destroy it with fire magic, only to discover that magic doesn't work inside this place. Hajime calmly tells her not to worry before shattering the massive rock with a single bullet. But immediately afterward, another wave of giant boulders appears. Shay tells them to leave this one to her and smashes every single boulder apart with her weapon. Unfortunately, the dungeon is filled with traps. Every few steps, another deadly trap appears. Eventually, they reach another chamber. Suddenly, the exit closes behind them. Hajime says the room feels strangely familiar. Then Yue points at the magical tablet. Only then do they realize they've returned to the exact place where they started. Elsewhere, in the Hylic Kingdom, Yuka asks to accompany Commander Chang on his next expedition, hoping to find Hajime somewhere inside the dungeon. However, Chang tells her that Hajime is already dead, and that risking her life for such a mission would be pointless. Even so, Yuka refuses to change her mind, and declares that she will go even if she has to do it alone. Meanwhile, after wandering through the dungeon for quite some time, our trio reaches a massive chamber filled with armored knights surrounding a giant throne. Hajime assumes it must be the dungeon master's room, but something about those suits of armor feels suspicious. Suddenly, every suit of armor comes to life. Hajime smiles and prepares for battle. He draws both of his handguns while Shay charges straight into the armored knights with her weapon. At the same time, Hajime cuts through their ranks, firing non-stop and taking down dozens of them. Then, every armored knight charges at Shay all at once. Yue immediately saves her with ice crystal. The three fight together in perfect sync, while Hajime makes his way toward the crystals. He reloads his weapons and starts shooting the crystals. Every suit of armor connected to a shattered crystal immediately collapses. However, the enemies keep multiplying. Hajime realizes that every time he destroys one, two more appear in its place. Suddenly, a new door opens before them. The three immediately rush through it. A giant stone platform lifts them upward until they finally reach the surface. Waiting there is a gigantic suit of knight armor, completely different from every other one they had fought. It turns out to be the source of the mysterious voice. The armored knight introduces himself as Ryo and declares that today will be their last day alive. Hajime looks at him in surprise and replies that Ryo died many years ago and that he already read Oscar's records. The giant asks whether they are the ones who conquered Oscar's dungeon. Hajime replies that they are, then warns him that if he doesn't explain what he wants, he'll attack immediately. Ryo asks why he wants to conquer every dungeon and obtain the ancient magic. For the first time, Hajime reveals his true goal. He tells Ryo that he wants to master the ancient magic so he can return to his own world. He then asks whether that magic is truly capable of sending him home. But Ryo refuses to answer and tells him to keep wondering. Hajime calmly replies that he'll find the answer himself. Suddenly, he pulls out a massive cannon and aims it at Ryo. He fires immediately, while Shay charges in at the same time with her war hammer. Right after that, Hajime leaps toward Ryo and fires two bullets that pierce the armor, knocking it to the ground. However, Ryo stands back up as if nothing happened and tells them that now it's her turn. Without warning, an enormous rain of boulders crashes down on them. Hajime blows apart part of the falling rocks, grabs Yue and Shay, and escapes the collapsing area. Ryo assumes they were crushed by the very first attack, but she's caught off guard when Hajime suddenly appears behind her and tells her they're still standing. In the next moment, Yue blasts her with the cannon while Hajime fires his grappling hook toward her. He pulls himself in and fires another shot, knocking her to the ground once again. Yue immediately takes advantage of the opening and freezes her with ice magic. Hajime smiles and tells her that's perfect before pulling out the strongest weapon in his arsenal. The weapon begins charging up with energy. Then Hajime fires. The blast tears straight through the armor with overwhelming force. Even so, Ryo tells him it wasn't enough, claiming the armor wasn't damaged nearly as much as he expected. Hajime immediately calls for Shay. She brings her hammer down with all her strength onto the armor's head. The blow pierces the armor and shatters the jewel hidden inside. Ryo lets out a loud scream before the armor finally stops moving. Shay believes they've finally defeated her, but Ryo tells them she's still alive. Confused, Hajime asks how she's still able to speak after the core was destroyed. She explains that she's only speaking through the remaining energy stored inside her. Once that energy runs out, she'll disappear forever. Before fading away, she tells Hajime that if he truly wants to obtain the ancient magic, he must conquer every dungeon. Hajime thanks her for the advice. Little by little, Ryo begins disappearing. As they leave the dungeon, they're suddenly greeted by a small doll. The doll introduces itself as Ryo. Everyone is shocked since they thought they had already defeated her. Shay immediately draws her weapon and tries to attack. Ryo tells her to calm down, insisting that this time she really is about to disappear. Even so, Shay smashes the doll right on the head. Before disappearing, Ryo gives Hajime the dungeon's ring, but Hajime doesn't stop there. He takes everything he can carry from the dungeon. Ryo calls them a bunch of thieves before telling them to leave and never come back. Suddenly, a torrent of water falls on them, and the doll drags them underwater, forcing them out of the dungeon. While they're underwater, Shay notices a strange-looking fish. To her surprise, the fish suddenly speaks and asks if she's staring at its face. Shay is completely traumatized. A short while later, the three finally reach the surface of the lake. Hajime says that one day he'll come back and blow up this dungeon along with Ryo. Meanwhile, Shay is still unconscious after what she experienced underwater. Hajime wakes her up, and the three head toward the nearest city. They check into a hotel. Hajime asks for a room, some food, and a bath. Meanwhile, Shay and Yaoi start arguing over who gets to sleep alone with Hajime. Finally losing his patience, Hajime pulls out his handgun and wonders if he should just shoot both of them and get it over with. The next morning, our group meets with the head of the Adventurers Guild. He introduces himself and says his name is Ilwa. He tells them that he heard they entered Milady's dungeon and came back alive, which proves just how powerful they are. He then says he has a new mission for them. Before he can explain, Hajime cuts him off, saying he has no interest in hearing about any missions, and prepares to leave. Even so, the three later ride north on Hajime's motorcycle toward the northern mountains. The mission Ilwa gave them was to find a missing person. That person happened to be the son of a noble family, but Hajime couldn't care less who he was. The only thing that mattered to him was the reward. So he asked Ilwa exactly what he would get in return. Ilwa promised to give him anything he wanted. Hajime first requested a status plate. Then he added one more condition. If he ever needed the Adventurers Guild's help in the future, Ilwa would have to provide it. Ilwa agreed without hesitation. For now, Hajime tells Yaoi that they'll spend the night in the village of Ur, then continue toward the northern mountains the following morning. The village of Ur is famous for growing rice. As soon as they arrive, they head straight to a restaurant. Inside, they notice a familiar group sitting together. They are members of the Heroes Party, the same group Hajime once belonged to. Their teacher Aiko is with them as well. Suddenly, Aiko hears Hajime's voice. She immediately jumps to her feet and rushes over. Even though his appearance has changed completely, she asks if he's really Hajime. Without thinking, he calls her sensei. Overjoyed, Aiko tells him that he's actually alive. Realizing his mistake, Hajime immediately denies being Hajime, but Aiko grabs him and points out that he literally called her sensei a second ago. Trying to escape the situation, Hajime claims she heard wrong and says that in his dialect, the word sensei actually means short. Aiko immediately tells him that no dialect in the world says that and accuses him of lying. She then asks why his appearance changed so much and why his hair turned completely white. Finally, Hajime lets out a sigh and admits that he really is Hajime. Everyone sits down together. Aiko immediately starts asking him one question after another, but Hajime keeps dodging them and pretends he's more interested in ordering food. She slams her hand on the table and tells him she's not finished talking. Then she asks who the two girls traveling with him are. Once again, Hajime tries to avoid answering, saying he's hungry right now. Before he can change the subject again, Yaoi and Shay introduce themselves. Then, just to tease him, they jokingly announce that they're both Hajime's wives. Aiko is completely stunned and asks how he managed to marry two women. Hajime quickly denies it, insisting that they're only joking. Soon the food arrives and everyone begins eating. Aiko asks what happened to him after the battle. He simply replies that he went through hell just to stay alive. She then asks why his appearance changed so drastically and why his hair turned white. He gives her the same answer again, saying that surviving came at a heavy price. Finally, she asks why he never came back after escaping the dungeon. Hajime quietly answers that he never found a reason to return. Suddenly, a knight slams his fist onto their table. Hajime warns him to respect the food, but the knight insults Shay and even tries to attack Yaoi. That is enough for Hajime, who immediately shoots him in the arm and sends him crashing into a wall. After the incident, Hajime tells Aiko that he no longer cares about the heroes and warns that anyone who stands in his way will be treated as an enemy. Later that night, Hajime secretly visits Aiko and reveals the truth about the world. He explains that heroes have been summoned for centuries only to die in endless wars, and that the only way home is by conquering every dungeon and obtaining the ancient magic. Before leaving, he also reveals that someone from their own class deliberately caused him to fall into the dungeon. Soon afterward, Hajime agrees to let Aiko's group travel with him. While searching the northern mountains for a missing noble named Will, Hajime uses mechanical scout insects to search the area. The group eventually finds Will hiding inside a cave. Will explains that his entire party was slaughtered by a massive massive black dragon. Instead of comforting him, Hajime bluntly tells him the truth. Your friends died because you were too weak. If you don't take revenge, you'll regret it forever. Just as they prepare to leave, the same black dragon attacks. Hajime protects everyone with a massive shield, while Yaoi and Shay launch powerful attacks. But the dragon survives and nearly kills them. Realizing he can't protect everyone at once, Hajime orders Aiko to evacuate the others while Yaoi defends them. Then he faces the dragon alone. Drawing out his massive cannon, Hajime challenges the dragon head-on. A split second later, boom! Both Hajime and the dragon charge straight at each other, and the entire battlefield erupts into chaos. However, Hajime's cannon is far more powerful. The blast strikes the dragon's wing and sends it crashing to the ground. Hajime suddenly walks over and stands on top of it, then asks if it has ever experienced an attack like this before. With one brutal strike, he makes the dragon scream in unbearable pain. After that, he throws a grenade onto its body, and it explodes immediately. The enraged dragon rises and charges toward Hajime, but he opens fire on its head before throwing another grenade that destroys the surrounding area. Unable to endure any more damage, the dragon finally collapses. Hajime seizes the opportunity and pulls out his massive cannon, preparing to end the battle. But suddenly the dragon gets back up and charges straight toward Will. No one understands why it is so focused on him. At the last second, Shay appears and leaps toward the dragon, smashing its head with her hammer and knocking it back to the ground. Hajime then grabs a gigantic spear and drives it deep into the dragon's back. Suddenly, the dragon screams, and everyone realizes that it can actually speak. It begs Hajime to remove the spear and promises that it will never attack them again. However, Hajime strikes the spear even harder, forcing it deeper into the dragon's body. He then asks who it is and how it can speak. The dragon explains that it is a demi-human from the great dragon race. Hajime presses down on the spear again and orders it to continue. The dragon desperately begs him to stop, explaining that its strength is almost gone. If it returns to its true form while the spear is still inside its body, it will die. Even so, Hajime continues applying pressure before asking why it killed the adventurers. The dragon finally confesses everything. It tells them that someone was controlling it. That person forced it to kill Will's companions and also ordered it to kill Will himself. It explains that it had been sleeping peacefully when a mysterious disguised figure appeared and used a spell to take control of its body. However, Will refuses to believe it. He accuses the dragon of lying to save itself and says he will never forgive it for killing his friends. The dragon replies that it has already told them everything it knows and they are free to believe it or not. It then warns them that the mysterious person is planning to gather an entire army of monsters under his control. But Hajime says none of that concerns him. Even if the army destroys the entire world, he prepares to kill the dragon, but Yaoi stops him. She tells him that the dragon was not truly responsible for the deaths of the adventurers, so there is no reason to kill it. Hajime accepts her reasoning. However, the dragon warns him that it will die anyway, unless he removes the spear. Hajime finally pulls it out. Suddenly, the dragon returns to its true form. It turns out to be a girl. She tells him that if he had waited any longer to remove the spear, she really would have died. Hajime asks who she is. She introduces herself as Tio, a member of the dragon clan. After that, Tio tells them that the army being gathered by the mysterious figure is preparing to destroy the city of Ur. It is the same city Hajime passed through earlier. Suddenly, Hajime's scouting insects detect the army. He discovers that it consists of more than 2,000 monsters and dragons, and they have already started moving. Aiko tells him they need to hurry to the city before it is destroyed, but Hajime asks her to calm down. He explains that his main mission is to escort them to the city of Furin, not to take part in this war. Then he asks whether she seriously expects him to face an entire army alone. After that, he takes Will and prepares to leave. His teacher asks if he is really going to abandon them there. Hajime replies that his mission is to return Will to the guildmaster. Anyone who wants to come with him is free to do so, and anyone who wants to save Ur can make their own decision. At that moment, Tio tells everyone to remain there until she recovers her strength. Once she does, they can go and face the army. Hajime replies that he wishes he had finished her off earlier and saved himself the trouble. Elsewhere, the monster army continues marching toward the city under the command of the mysterious figure. Their numbers are so overwhelming that no group of knights or ordinary humans could possibly stop them. Meanwhile, Aiko the knight and another member of the group continue trying to convince Hajime to save the city. Aiko tells him that thousands of people will die if they do not arrive in time. But Hajime asks why she cares so much, saying that the only people she should be worried about are her students. She replies that the citizens are innocent and have done nothing wrong. At that moment, Hajime gets to his feet and tells everyone to prepare carefully before the war begins. And just like that, he agrees to help them. Preparations begin immediately. Hajime builds a massive wall to protect the city, while most of the citizens move to the opposite side. However, many of them choose to remain with Hajime and help prepare the defenses against the monsters. Once all the preparations are complete, Hajime tells Aiko that they are ready and that the monsters could arrive at any moment. Aiko apologizes, admitting that she knows she dragged him into this war, but Hajime reassures her and promises that they will wipe out the enemy. Night falls. Hajime sits on top of the wall, reloading his rifle as he waits for the army to arrive. It is obvious that the coming battle will be brutal. At that moment, Yuka approaches him. He asks why she came. She thanks him for saving her inside the dungeon. But Hajime immediately realizes that she did not come just to thank him, so he tells her to say what she really wants. She tells him that she plans to fight in the upcoming battle. He replies that she can do whatever she wants, but warns her that she may die. She assures him that she understands and then leaves. Suddenly, Hajime tells someone hiding nearby to come out because he can sense their presence. It turns out to be Tio, who has been watching him from a distance. She tells him that she wants to join his group once the battle is over. It seems that every girl Hajime meets eventually decides to follow him, but he refuses, saying that Shay alone already gives him more than enough headaches. Tio tries to convince him that her strength will be useful. However, he tells her to stay away and makes it clear that he wants neither her nor her power. Meanwhile, Yue and Shay are watching the entire conversation. Shay says that Tio seems completely crazy. She barely knows them, yet she already wants to join their group. But Yue sees things differently. She says that Tio is extremely powerful and may actually be useful to them. After that, the monster army finally arrives. Hajime looks at them and declares that they have come straight to their deaths. At that moment, most of the citizens gather behind him. He tells them that they are going to win this battle, and that if Aiko had not interfered, he would have already left this place behind. Because she's my teacher, I'm going to protect this city, and we're going to wipe them all out. Suddenly, Hajime pulls out an enormous rifle and fires a devastating shot that wipes out an entire line of dragons flying through the sky. The commander of the monster army is stunned by his power, but that was only the beginning. Everyone prepares for battle as Hajime pulls out a massive machine gun and opens fire on the monsters. At the same time, Shay unleashes her cannon, bombarding the enemy without stopping. Every kind of weapon imaginable is unleashed across the battlefield, and their attacks devastate the area while cutting down countless monsters. Then Tio dives into the fight with overwhelming force, creating a tornado that sweeps away a huge group of enemies. Meanwhile, Yue uses her lightning magic, striking the monsters from every direction. The four of them fight in perfect harmony. Even so, the battle has only just begun. The monsters they've defeated don't even make up a quarter of the entire army. Hajime and Shay continue firing non-stop, preventing a single monster from getting anywhere near the city wall. Seeing this, the commander orders the dragons waiting in the rear to charge, but Hajime shoots every last one of them out of the sky before they can even get close. Meanwhile, Tio starts running out of strength and admits she can't keep fighting. Hajime tells her to get some rest, only to realize that she has already fallen asleep before he even finishes speaking. Suddenly, Hajime runs out of ammunition. Without hesitation, he summons his motorcycle, takes Shay with him, and drives straight into the middle of the monster army. At the same time, Yue unleashes her strongest spell, Lightning Dragon, which crashes down upon the battlefield and tears through the monster ranks. Hajime charges straight into the heart of the army, draws both of his handguns, and starts firing in every direction. Any monster foolish enough to attack him is dropped instantly. No one can stand against him. At the same time, Shay brings her hammer down on the head of a gigantic monster, killing it with a single blow. Suddenly, Hajime throws several grenades, blowing apart huge sections of the battlefield. He then leaps into the air and shoots down the dragons one after another. After witnessing Shay's overwhelming strength, many of the monsters begin running away from her. But suddenly, a moonwolf lunges at her. It stands no chance. Shay smashes its head completely apart with a single strike. The commander of the monster army tries to escape, but when he turns around, Hajime is already standing in front of him with a handgun pointed at his head. With a sarcastic smile, Hajime says, "It's rude to leave before introducing yourself." He then shoots the wolf the commander is riding, sending it crashing to the ground. After that, he demands to know who the commander really is. By then, Shay has already finished dealing with most of the remaining monsters and walks over to join them. The commander has nowhere left to run. Hajime grabs him by the neck, drags him across the ground, and throws him in front of Aiko. The moment she sees his face, it's obvious she knows him. She asks why he did all of this. To everyone's surprise, the commander turns out to be Shimizu, one of Aiko's students. He admits that everything started because he felt inferior and jealous of how talented his classmates were. Even Aiko never noticed the pain he was hiding. One day, he encountered a group of demons in the mountains. They exploited his weakness and granted him tremendous power. After that, Shimizu gathered the monster army and attacked the city. His true goal had been to kill his own teacher. Even after losing, he insists that everything he did was justified. He tells Aiko that killing her was part of the agreement he made with the demons so they would accept him. Then he turns to Hajime and asks how he managed to destroy the entire army. He still has no idea that the man standing before him is actually his former classmate, Hajime. Aiko tries to calm him down. She tells him she forgives him and begs him not to let the demons manipulate him any further. She warns him that once they get what they want, they'll kill him too. But suddenly, Shimizu betrays her. He presses a poisoned weapon against her neck. He warns everyone not to move. The blade is coated with a deadly poison, and any attempt to save her will only get her killed. He orders Hajime to throw away every one of his weapons, or he'll kill Aiko. But Hajime calmly tells him that even if he disarmed himself, Shimizu would kill her anyway. He knows exactly what kind of person he is. Without another word, Hajime draws his handgun and fires. At the worst possible moment, Shay jumps in to protect Aiko, and the bullet strikes Shay instead. At the same time, Shimizu's blade grazes Aiko's neck. Realizing he'll die if he stays, Shimizu jumps onto a dragon and tries to escape, but Hajime shoots him out of the sky, sending him crashing to the ground. He immediately rushes over to Shay and tries to give her the water of God. She tells him she's fine and asks him to save Aiko first. He rushes over to his teacher and finds her moments away from death because of the poison. He gives her the water of God just in time. Fortunately, only a small amount of poison entered her body. She regains consciousness and slowly gets back on her feet. Then she notices Shimizu lying on the ground. His injuries are fatal, and no one is helping him. She begs Hajime to give him the water of God before he dies, but Hajime reminds her that only moments ago he was trying to kill her. He then turns toward Shimizu and asks whether he'll remain their enemy if he's saved. Shimizu desperately promises that he won't. He begs for his life, saying he doesn't want to die, but without hesitation, Hajime shoots him. One bullet, one execution. Aiko is horrified and asks why he killed one of her students. Hajime replies that Shimizu never deserved to be her student after trying to murder her. After that, Hajime walks away, leaving Aiko grieving over Shimizu's death. He gets into his vehicle and leaves the city. During the journey, Will asks why he killed Shimizu like that instead of simply letting him die from his injuries. Hajime answers that anyone from the hero's party who stands in his way will be eliminated without mercy. Elsewhere, a group of slave hunters is holding a little girl captive. Their leader tells the others that she belongs to the merfolk race and that selling her will earn them a fortune. But who are these people? And how did the little girl end up in their hands? Meanwhile, back in Furin, Will is finally reunited with his father. His father is overwhelmed with joy because he had already lost hope and believed his son was dead. Hajime tells him that he has safely returned his son and now wants the promised status plate in exchange. Will's father immediately agrees. Later, everyone returns to their room at the hotel. Yaoi examines the status plate and comments that it's surprisingly advanced. Then Shay asks Hajime if they can go sightseeing around the city since they just survived a major war. But Hajime isn't even listening. He's watching two suspicious figures standing below the hotel. He concludes that they're planning something. Then he tells the others that someone is following them. Even so, he isn't worried. He calmly says he'll deal with those two as well. At this point, Hajime only lives by one rule when it comes to his enemies. Either he kills them, or they try to kill him. Meanwhile, Tio quietly finds herself thinking about her father and the destruction of her kingdom. But, because she's my teacher, I'm going to protect this city, and we're going to wipe them all out. After that, Hajime smashes the water tank, grabs Miu, and uses wind magic to fly into the sky with her. Miu asks why they are flying so high. Hajime tells her that she is about to see the most beautiful fireworks show of her life. In the next moment, the gang's hideout explodes along with everything inside it. But they do not stop there. Yaoi uses lightning magic to destroy the rest of the gang's hideouts scattered throughout the city. Afterward, Hajime lands beside the rest of the group. Miu thanks him for saving her. Then she suddenly calls him Papa. And just like that, it seems Hajime has truly become responsible for her. After that, Hajime takes everyone inside the vehicle and leaves the city, while Shay rides the motorcycle ahead of them. They continue their journey until they finally reach Horlad village. The moment Hajime enters the village, he remembers visiting it before with the hero's party. It is clear that he still carries many painful feelings toward them. He tells the others that he came to this place only 4 months ago, yet it feels as though several years have passed since then. Afterward, Hajime enters one of the guild buildings, apparently planning to register there. He goes to meet the guild master and hands him a letter from the head of the Adventurers Guild. The letter explains that Hajime and his party defeated an army of 5,000 monsters on their own. It also states that they destroyed one of the most dangerous criminal gangs in the city. However, the guild master, Phobos, looks at him in disbelief. He asks whether Hajime seriously expects him to believe that they accomplished all of that. Then he tells him to take the letter and leave. Suddenly, a boy smashes through the door and rushes inside, shouting that a demon has appeared in the dungeon. At that moment, Hajime realizes that he knows the boy. He is one of his former classmates from the hero's party, and his name is Endo. Endo is shocked when he sees him and asks how he is still alive. Hajime replies that he managed to escape the dungeon after everyone abandoned him there. Endo approaches him and asks if he has become powerful enough to escape the dungeon by himself. Then he desperately begs Hajime to return with him, because the entire party may die inside. He begins explaining what happened. The heroes had been exploring the dungeon, and everything seemed normal. However, they found it strange that they had reached that area without encountering a single monster. Endo asked Amanagawa why the path had been so easy. Meanwhile, Shizuku suggested retreating because she felt that something terrible was about to happen. At that moment, Daisuke noticed monster blood on the ground. Then everyone sensed a strange energy. Suddenly a female demon appeared in front of them. She looked at Amanagawa and told him that he seemed powerful. Then she offered him the chance to join her instead of dying alongside his companions. But Amanagawa refused her offer and told her she was dreaming. She replied that the choice was his, because she intended to kill all of them anyway. Then she rushed toward Shizuku and Suzu, knocking both of them to the ground with a single attack. After that, the demon summoned her monsters, and the heroes immediately attacked them. However, their attacks had no effect. The monsters were unnaturally powerful. One of them slammed into the area with overwhelming force, destroying everything around it and sending Amanagawa flying. Then the monsters surrounded the heroes from every direction. During that time, Shizuku regained consciousness and attacked one of the creatures, but it easily dodged her strike because of its incredible speed. Realizing there was no other option, she told Endo to use his stealth skill and escape. She ordered him to report everything to Captain Meld and bring help as quickly as possible. Endo followed her instructions and eventually reached the guild, where he found Hajime. After Endo finishes telling him everything, Hajime remains silent. He is not interested in what happens to them. Endo asks whether he will help, reminding him that the entire party is dying inside the dungeon. However, his loud voice frightens Miyu, causing her to cry. Hajime immediately tells him not to raise his voice in front of his daughter. Meanwhile, the battle inside the dungeon is still raging. Up to that point, the demon has not even joined the fight herself. She simply lets her monsters play with the heroes. The giant monster lunges toward Amanagawa, but he blocks it with his sword. Then Amanagawa unleashes his full power and cuts the creature into pieces. This reveals why the demon wanted him to join her. His strength is truly overwhelming. However, the demon begins preparing a deadly attack. Then she unleashes a skill called Black Mist. One of the girls creates a magic barrier that protects the entire party, but she cannot maintain it for long. And that was exactly what the demon wanted. She summons her monsters again, but this time, she brings them inside the barrier itself. One of the monsters attacks Suzu and pierces straight through her body. The barrier disappears, and Suzu collapses to the ground in a pool of blood. Then the black mist reaches her, causing her body to slowly turn to stone. For a moment, it appears that she is dead. Amanagawa falls to the ground in shock. Shizuku tells him that they need to retreat, but he refuses, saying that he cannot run away after they killed Suzu. He insists that they will either survive together or die together. Shizuku slaps him and tells him to come back to his senses. She explains that if they all die here, no one will be left to avenge Suzu. They must escape now and return later for revenge. Back at the guild, Endo continues telling Hajime what happened. He explains that he rushed to warn Captain Meld, but one of the monsters followed him. The creature killed every soldier accompanying the captain. Then Meld attacked the monster and ordered Endo to bring help. Once again, Endo begs Hajime, telling him that the party is dying right now. But why should Hajime help them after they betrayed him? Not one of them even tried to save him when he fell into the depths of the dungeon. Meanwhile, the heroes managed to escape from the demon. However, they still do not know how to leave the dungeon. At that moment, Daisuke suggests suggests joining the demon because there is no other way for them to escape. Eri agrees, saying they are going to die anyway. Shizuku stares at them in disbelief and says, "What are you talking about? She's a demon. Even if we join her, she'll still kill us." However, Eri is terrified and afraid of dying. She tells them that there is still a chance they might survive if they join the demon. But suddenly, Captain Meld appears before them. His body is covered in wounds and blood is pouring from every part of him. He tells them not to fear death, because if they die, they will die as heroes. But the demon suddenly appears behind him and drives her sword straight through his body. Captain Meld collapses to the ground, covered in blood, and dies in front of everyone. Amanagawa screams in shock, unable to believe that the captain is dead. Suddenly, his anger explodes and all of his power is released at once. Shizuku warns him to stop because his body will not be able to handle that much power. But Amanagawa can no longer see anything except the enemy in front of him. Even the demon senses how dangerous his aura has become, so she orders her monsters to attack him. Meanwhile, Guildmaster Fabus tells Hajime that he now believes the stories about his strength. He asks him to help the heroes and bring them out of the dungeon. Endu also reminds him that they are his friends and says he should help them. However, Hajime replies that they were his friends in the past. When he was trapped alone inside the dungeon, not one of them thought about him. Returning to Amanagawa, he unleashes his full power and destroys every monster surrounding him. Then he charges directly toward the demon. Terrified by his strength, the demon creates a stone barrier around herself, but Amanagawa strikes the barrier and splits it in half. His attack also hits the demon, sending her crashing into the wall with blood covering her body. He raises his sword above her head, preparing to finish her, but suddenly he notices a picture of the demon and her husband inside her necklace. Amanagawa hesitates for a moment. The demon calls him an idiot. She immediately summons another monster, which attacks Amanagawa and sends him flying. Because of his hesitation, he loses his chance to kill her. Meanwhile, Endu continues begging Hajime for help. He tells him that Shirasaki is with the others, and if he does not reach them soon, they will all die. Elsewhere, Shirasaki tries to heal Captain Meld and Amanagawa, but all of her healing magic power has already been exhausted. At the same time, the demon recovers her strength. Now Shizuku is almost the only person still capable of fighting. The demon admits that Shizuku is strong, but wonders how much longer she can survive. Shizuku attacks one of the monsters, but the demon suddenly summons even more. One of them charges at Shizuku, knocks away her sword, and slams her through the rocks with overwhelming force. Shizuku coughs up blood as Shirasaki rushes toward her, but Shizuku tells her to run, saying there is no longer any hope of survival. Suddenly, two monsters prepare to finish them off, but a devastating attack appears out of nowhere and kills both monsters at once. Everyone stares in shock, wondering who launched the attack. Then Hajime appears before them. He has finally decided to help. It turns out that Endu managed to convince him, and the entire group immediately headed toward the dungeon. Along the way, Hajime destroyed every monster that appeared before him. Nothing could stop his advance. He reached them just in time and saved them before the monsters could finish them off. None of the heroes recognize him except Shirasaki. She calls out his name, while Shizuku stares in disbelief and asks how that man could possibly be Hajime. Hajime confirms that it is really him and says that of course they all believed he was dead. At that moment, Yue drops down from above, and Hajime catches her. The rest of his party arrives soon afterward, and everyone prepares for battle. Hajime notices the large number of dangerous monsters surrounding them. He asks Yue to protect the heroes and says he will handle the monsters himself. Shirasaki warns him that he cannot possibly fight all of them alone, but Tio tells her that she clearly does not know Hajime very well. She assures her that he can deal with them. The demon looks at Hajime and tells him that his arrival will not change their fate. They are all going to die anyway. Hajime gives her one final chance. He tells her to leave, and he will allow her to live. But she refuses and declares that she will kill every one of them. She opens a portal beside Hajime to summon another monster. However, Hajime kills it before its entire body can even emerge from the portal. He looks at her and asks if she is seriously playing games with him. Everyone is stunned by his overwhelming strength. Suddenly, Hajime draws both of his handguns and opens fire on every monster in the area. The demon becomes furious and orders the cat-like monsters to attack him, but they cannot even get close. Hajime kills every last one of them. He reloads both handguns and suddenly the wolves charge toward him. He rains bullets down on them and wipes them out before turning his weapons toward the giant monsters. After he brings them down, the remaining creatures surround him from every direction. But Hajime continues destroying them at incredible speed, as if the only things he can see are enemies waiting to die. He leaps into the air and fires down at the remaining monsters, with his bullets tearing through all of their bodies. The demon watches in disbelief. Only 3 monsters remain after Hajime has destroyed the rest, and he still has not used his full power. 2 monsters charge at him. He fires 1 bullet into each of their heads, killing both instantly. Only the giant monster remains. It begins charging a devastating attack. The monster fires at Hajime, but he pulls out his shield within seconds and blocks the entire blast. Then he mocks the demon and reflects the monster's attack back toward her, sending her flying. After that, Hajime draws both handguns and fires at the monster. However, it hides inside its shell to protect itself, so Hajime simply waits for it to come back out. The moment its head appears, he throws a grenade directly into its mouth. The grenade explodes and completely destroys the monster from the inside. Hajime then reminds the demon that he gave her a chance to escape from the beginning. She was the one who threw that chance away. Amanogawa stares at Hajime in complete disbelief. He wonders if this is truly the same Hajime they once knew. The man standing before him now seems more like a human monster, and among all the heroes, Daisuke is the only one sitting there in terror. He used to bully Hajime constantly, and it is becoming increasingly clear that he may be the one who betrayed him and caused him to fall into the depths of the dungeon. Daisuke completely loses his temper. He grabs Endo and shouts, "Hajime is dead! You're lying to all of us!" Suddenly Yaoi tells him to be quiet and says that his turn has not come yet. Daisuke immediately falls silent, realizing that the situation is no longer in his favor. Meanwhile, Shirasaki successfully heals Suzu, allowing her to regain consciousness and survive. Suzu tries to cast a spell to protect the party, but Yaoi stops her and says she'll handle it herself. She then uses Black Hole. The spell pulls the 2 monsters into the dark vortex before crushing them within seconds. At the same time, Shay tries to save Captain Meld, but a group of monsters suddenly attacks her. She grabs her hammer and crushes them one after another until none of them are left. As for Tio, not a single monster can stand against her. She defeats them with such ease that it almost looks like she's playing. Suddenly, a giant serpent charges toward Shizuku. Hajime immediately throws her a sword. Shizuku catches it and cuts off the serpent's head with a single swing. Its severed head lands right in front of Shirasaki. At that moment, the demon looks at Hajime in fear and asks who he really is. She then releases the black mist, the same attack that nearly killed Suzu. Everyone believes Hajime has disappeared inside the mist. Thinking she finally has a chance, the demon turns to escape. But after everything she has done, there is no escaping. Suddenly, a massive spear crashes down in front of her. Then Hajime calmly walks out of the black mist without a single scratch. It turns out he activated a defensive skill just moments before the attack reached him. He asks where she thinks she's going and tells her that it's rude to leave before their fight is over. Walking toward her, he points his handgun at her head. Before killing her, he asks why she came to the dungeon. She replies that she's going to die anyway, so she has no reason to tell him. Without hesitation, Hajime shoots both of her legs. She collapses to the ground. He then asks whether demons can use ancient magic. He explains that he is searching for it and demands to know how he can obtain it. She tells him that he must reach the end of the dungeon. Then she asks him to kill her. However, she warns him that one day her husband will come to kill him. Hajime simply replies that they'll see which one of them dies first. He says goodbye, then fires a single shot that blows her head apart. Everyone watching is horrified by both his power and his merciless resolve. Afterward, Hajime walks over to Shay and asks whether Captain Meld is still alive. She tells him that she managed to save him. If she had been even 1 minute later, he would have died. Then Yue walks over to Hajime. He tells her that the entire party is safe thanks to her, because she was the one protecting everyone. The two of them quietly stand close together for a brief moment in the middle of the ruined battlefield. Soon afterward, the rest of the party gathers around them. Shirasaki asks whether the captain died. Hajime tells her that Shay managed to save him. Hearing that, Shirasaki bursts into tears. She says she still can't believe he's really alive. Hajime gently tells her not to cry and reminds her that he's standing right in front of her. He speaks carefully, mostly because he has a feeling that Yue and Shay might explode with jealousy at any second. Unable to hold back anymore, Shirasaki hugs him tightly and continues crying. Meanwhile, Shay looks like she's about to lose her temper. After that, everyone leaves the chamber and starts searching for a way out of the dungeon. Along the way, an entire army of skeletons appears before them, but Yue wipes them all out within moments. Meanwhile, Amanogawa confronts Hajime in anger. He asks why he killed the demon instead of letting her escape. Hajime looks at him in disbelief and asks how he could possibly let her go after everything she had done. Then he tells Amanogawa that she isn't the first person he has killed. He's already killed many others like her. Because in this world, if you don't kill, you'll be the one who dies. Suddenly, Hajime points his handgun directly at Amanogawa. He warns him never to stand in his way. Otherwise, he'll kill him too. After saying that, Hajime turns around and keeps walking. The moment they step through the gate, they find an entire army waiting outside. Hajime is surprised to see so many soldiers. Then Fabi steps out from among them and says that he gathered the army to rescue everyone. Hajime calmly replies that everything is already over. The demon is dead, so there's nothing left to worry about. Afterward, Shirasaki walks over to him and says she wants to travel with him. But Yue immediately refuses, saying that their party is already complete. The argument between Yue and Shirasaki nearly turns into a fight. Even so, Shirasaki refuses to let go of Hajime, insisting that she'll travel with him no matter what. Her feelings are understandable. She and Hajime were close friends long before they were summoned into this world. At that point, Shizuku steps in and gently pulls Shirasaki away from him. Hajime tells everyone to get moving. Before leaving, he tells Shirasaki that his group will leave the city the following day. If she truly wants to come with them, she should be there. Afterward, Hajime spends the rest of the day with his old classmates, trying to leave the painful memories of the past behind. The following morning, everyone gathers at the city gate. Shirasaki says goodbye to the rest of the heroes before walking over to Hajime. And with that, they set off on their journey once again, searching for the ancient magic that could finally return them to their own world. And with that, the first part of Hajime's story comes to an end. So, what will happen to him next? Will Hajime find the ancient magic and finally make his way back to his own world? Or is an even greater disaster waiting for him, forcing him to stay in this world even longer? You'll find out all that and more in part 2 of Hajime's story. See you in the next video. Take care.